some of you may know me from. I'm excited to share with you today just about the transformation that AIG is going through, and how I'm excited to be part of that team, and how through my role I'm contributing to the overall diversity initiatives that are going on there. So excited to be here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's try that one more time. Good morning. All right, I'm Jesse Crawford. I'm from Verizon, and I'm the National Advocacy, Outreach, and Government Relations Manager for the entire enterprise, including global and domestic supplier diversity. I've been with Verizon, I hate to date myself, 17 years, but I have 23 in the industry.
30 million Hispanics, and in 2010, there's about 50 million Hispanics. So it's increased about 43%, 40-something%. By 2050, the minority population will surpass the Caucasian population, if not sooner, with the estimated 374 million people in the United States. 90% of that growth from now until then is going to be as a result of the minority population. Just to break it down by race a little bit, about 5% is Asian, about 0.9% American Indian, about 14% Black, and about 60% Hispanic. And the LGBT population, based upon Bob Liddick and his firm, he estimates about 6 to 7% of the U.S. population is LGBT, which is represents about 15 to 16 million people. And what's unique about LGBT and of course women is they cross all races. So that's what's unique about those particular segments. So and over about the past 10 years, minority-owned businesses have grown at double the rate of every other firm. They generate over in 2000 generate over $205 billion of revenue. Just some interesting facts that was shared by the National Minority Supplier Development Council, which is about in 2005, $94.6 billion was spent in supplier diversity, and of that, that's up from 86 million. Not billion, but 86 million in 1972 that was first tracked. And just to also tell you that the total buying power of the community is about $3.8 trillion. And breaking that down, LGBT is about 830 billion. The Hispanic is about 1.2 trillion. African American is about $1 trillion. Asian American is about 713 billion. And the Native American is about 96 billion. So that just lays some general groundwork, just so you understand some of the statistics, which I personally think are amazing. But now let's start asking some questions to our panel, just to get some ideas of what they think about some of these statistics and what they're doing at their businesses to actually address the changing demographics of the United States. Because one of the things that, if you're not adjusting to the demographic reality, that your company is not going to be successful in the future. So with that said, just a general easy question to start off with, what are your organizations doing in helping with the supplier diversity efforts, and buying from diverse suppliers and looking for diverse customers as well? Anybody?
Great. So as I mentioned, we have a slightly different take on supplier diversity. We're about 1,000 people, so we're much smaller than Verizon or some of the other companies here. When we went about launching our products in Spanish, something that was really important to us was that we didn't just put out an app in Spanish, that we actually had a complete experience in Spanish, that you never had to interact with us in any other language if you didn't want. So our approach was, okay, well, our CEO said, well, I guess we're all learning Spanish, we're all becoming bilingual then. So everything from customer support, to product marketing, to risk, to chargeback, every single piece of the puzzle, we suddenly had to have Spanish speakers. And this was a big shift for us, because we aren't actually that big. So things that we worked on, and we really worked on engaging with the community, on finding the right people for the job. We wanted people who not just spoke the language, but really understood what we were trying to do as a mission with this product launch. So we spoke to, for example, the Mission Economic Development Association is a big organization in San Francisco, worked with them to actually source some candidates. And that was a big focus for us. So that was one way that we went about it. Certainly when we looked at our suppliers for employee benefits, and as we started to pick new suppliers, it was very important to us to look for diverse and local firms as well, minority owned as much as possible. We need a company for our new relocation benefits. It was actually a USHCC event where someone came up to me and said, hey, by the way, I just started a firm, we're just getting up and started, and we work on employee relocation. And I put them in touch with someone from our human resources department and said, oh, it's funny you mentioned that, we're actually looking for a firm today.
Yeah,
So, exactly. So I encourage you guys to really do that as a side note. But it's something that, we're too small to necessarily have a whole department that focuses on it, but we really try to consider it our mission to get to know our customers, and that means having people who come from the communities our customers come from in every single department of our company and also the suppliers we work with.
Jesse was so kind, I don't know if you guys heard him whisper, he said, ladies first.
I was raised correct.
So it's an exciting time at AIG. I mean, I think everybody, well, I hope everybody doesn't, when they hear the AIG name, automatically think crisis, because that was our past. AIG has emerged from the crisis. We are not government owned. We paid back all of the money. We also paid it back with a profit. So we're now, folks, when I first joined AIG said, oh my gosh, Dan, why are you going to AIG? And I said, I'm excited to be part of a comeback. What we're doing at AIG right now is creating the greatest company in the world. In order to emerge from the crisis, we had to silo the company and sell off businesses. There was a lot going on in the company during that time, and quite frankly, was diversity at the top of mind? No, they were trying to pay back all the money. But now that we've emerged from that, there is a newfound focus on diversity. So we identified a chief diversity officer, a global chief diversity officer, about 3 years ago. We've given renewed focus on different functions such as supplier diversity, hence with them bringing me on board to lead the initiative.
We learned a long time ago, your supplier base should reflect your workforce, which should reflect your customer base. Very simple. I mean, that's that. If I were to simplify it and cut to the chase, that's what it's all about. It's great that there's stats today speaking to the buying power of minorities, but when you think about inclusion, and this is Jesse's comment, so this is off the record from Verizon, okay? I love Discovery. I love watching that channel. I can just watch those shows all day long to my wife's chagrin, right? But if you look at nature, nature understands the value of diversity. Think about the number of butterfly species out there, and the number, if you want to get away from animals, think about roses. How many varieties of roses are there? So even nature gets it, that diversity is a good thing. Now we have to convince ourselves that we're at the top of the food chain, right? We're the smartest animals on this earth, right? Supposedly. Why don't we get diversity as a good thing? Why does it have to be equated simply to dollars and not the value and the innovation and the ideas and the richness of each of different ways of approaching challenges to the world? So I'll stop with that because I know we have several questions, but again, for us it's very
growth people or just people who are in the lower end of the chain who are leading this. If they decide to leave, what's going to happen? So it has to be from the top. It has to be from the top down with really strong leadership. Significant progress has been made to build and retain diverse workforces, but there are still some impediments to companies' efforts. That's because, of course, there's always going to be people who want to slow things down because they like the status quo. But once again, the communities are changing and you have to keep up. With that said, just to lay a little bit of a foundation, I know that one of the things that that American did, during we're not American anymore, is they started including a diverse chief diversity officer in the workplace and started building plans to include diversity inclusion. What are your companies doing, or do your companies have a chief diversity officer, and then what are they doing to incorporate to make sure that all those things the study found are happening? If you can share it,
Sure. us rolling into the CEO is a recent phenomenon. Actually, it occurred back in March. So I captured a few strategic perspectives that I want to share with you guys. In order for us to embrace diversity throughout our business, we operate from an integrated shared accountability model. And it basically starts with building a diverse workforce which reflects our market. We've created an inclusive workplace where diversity is respected and there is zero tolerance for any discrimination. We also have cultivate diverse community partnerships by providing charitable sponsorships. So we're very active in the community through our Verizon Foundation. And we encourage our employees to volunteer their time and energy as well. We also do business with diverse suppliers. I'm proud to report that we are a founding member of the $1 Billion Roundtable. How many of you guys are familiar with that organization? Okay. The BDR, I see one of my BDR members in the room, and is made up of 20 companies who have spent at least $1 billion directly with minorities. And that is audited annually. But it speaks to the commitment that we have with diverse suppliers from a tier 1 perspective.
Is actually doing conferences and talking to people. What does it mean to be crowdfunded, right? Because everybody's like, oh, crowdfunding is going to be the panacea, but it may not be, especially because the new Jobs Act is equity crowdfunding, which is very different than peer-to-peer lending. And what we've been doing is a series of webinars across the country to talk about it, because you have to prepare now for when crowdfunding becomes available. And we don't know what type of platforms are going to be there, but we do know certain things. Somebody's going to be looking at your business with a investor eye, so they're going to go, why would I put $10 here versus putting $10 there? And how do we train businesses to understand that? Because it's not the same kind of package that you're used to doing. And how comfortable are you having your information out on a platform? And one of the things we're working with is USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office.
Product commerce.
Yeah, product commerce, because that's going to be something. Your business idea is going to be on the internet.
Let me just add something, and thank you for the crowdfunding. I know that Cynthia Rios is here from SEC. MBDA put out an alert to all of our MBEs when SEC was asking for comments. Let me tell you, you need to comment. When the government is asking for your opinion, make sure that you comment, because they read those comments. That's the bedrock to really make sure that the regulations or the framework really reflects the concerns of the community. So I have to make that public announcements pitch, because when the government asks for your opinion, please provide that. Your comments are invaluable. And you're right, on the crowdfunding, there's a lot of issues there. And I know that we have Spanic, which is here with Mr. Javier Salinas, who's doing a lot on crowdfunding.
So there was one other thing you mentioned, and David talked about it too, providing assistance to the smallest business, the emerging businesses. Just a pitch, the FDIC partnered with SBA to develop, we have a Money Smart Financial Education program. We have several. 2 million people have taken them, but we did develop one for small business owners with SBA, recognizing that one, they needed information on how to develop a small business and business planning and the like, but two, how to manage personal finances, because for many small business owners, the two are so combined. Community banks are the biggest customers of that. You know, there are 5,000 community banks nationwide out of 7,000. They make 46% of the small business loans. They work with small business owners, and they're using that program along with other programs. It's not just the largest banks to work with those small business owners to get them business ready as well as bankable. So just a pitch.
I would just add to that. So the FDIC Money Smart program is what we leverage in our volunteer network. I'm really passionate about financial literacy because it's been so rewarding to work with a small business owner and look at their returns and look at their financial statements and show them that actually they're getting bad advice from their accountants and they're not doing things correctly. And this is not as rare as we would think, and how when we restate things over the last few years for them, we actually have been able to get a loan in their hands, or when we've looked at the personal side of the balance sheet and refinanced a home that was at a very high interest rate and improved the cash flow on the personal side. There's a lot that goes in to being a small business owner. And our Better Money Habits, bettermoneyhabits.com, with Salt Khan that we've been heavily invested in. There's a lot of stuff there. It's all closed captioned in Spanish. We're going to be putting out our small business owner report in November for the first time, in language as well. We've hired a lot of bankers. Many of them do speak Spanish. And to the comment I made earlier, I feel we have a fiduciary responsibility to help people get to the SBA website, get to FDIC, and learn. And again, I would challenge every one of us. This stuff is not happening in the home. This is not happening in our schools. And we've got to make this type of financial awareness and education just about how the world works and what it means to save money and build personal net worth and how that helps a small business get through economic cycles. And they have to guarantee these loans. So the personal side's really equally as important, and we're trying to get our associates better at having that dual conversation. So you have a big advocate here in making it more transparent.
So I see a lot of hands, and we're short on time, but here's what we're going to do. State the question. We're going to take all the questions together, and we're going to let the panel be able to address it. So I know you had a question here. Okay.
I'll go quickly.
Okay.
Good morning. Camilo Suero. I represent the Michigan Spanish Chamber of Commerce. And our chamber has, let's say, successful Hispanic entrepreneurs that have been already around for quite a few years, and also well established with the OEMs and big tier one. So they're not starting, they're already what you call the middle market. But the issue that I see here, Michigan right now, after the downside, now is going to the upside. So we have the OEMs with big contracts for them, but the problem is they've been working, just gonna put you on the spot, with your bank for many years, and they have a line of credit X amount. Now the contract went up, they came to the conference here, got a nice PO, but when they go back and go talk to you, now you don't want to give them that extra line of credit. Where do they have to go? They have to go to factoring. But then the OEM said, if you're going to come to factoring, I cannot give you the contract. That's a reality that we're living right now. So I really like what I hear today. It's fantastic. But how can we address this reality that we're living right now? They're calling me, can you connect me with your, whoever you know, because we need that money so we can pursue with the contract. And oh, by the way, this is happening nationwide. These are companies, they hire hundreds of people. So the impact not only affects our own community, that these Hispanic people are hiring, not only Hispanic, but diversity. So that's kind of what I want to get.
Thank you, Camilo. Let's take,
So I don't have a question, I have a comment that is going to address some of your issues and some of what Roberto was saying. We've had extensive conversations about this. Marcelo Fernandez, Philadelphia Hispanic Chamber. Basically what we do, and we partner with you and we can work with the FDIC, with all of the guys, SBA and everybody. But basically what we think is truly important as a business association, chamber of commerce trade organization to do is to actually provide a technical assistance side for those smaller businesses that fall under $1 million that cannot secure the loan. I don't care what product you have, CDFI, MDI, traditional banking, it just does not work unless your paperwork is organized.
So one question here and one last question.
Frank and the Vogel rule because of the fact that they can invest into small businesses. So originally they couldn't do private equity investing. Part of what it is now they can put more assets instead of their balance sheet, so it doesn't cap them at the 10%. And that's one of the reasons the SBIC is a regulated program, so that we can get more capital into the small businesses in a different way by using debt mezzanine finance as opposed to a traditional loan. But you're right, it is a problem for banks on the traditional side of lending.
But we also need to provide more information. And I think that part of this dialogue is to make sure that this is not just a one-time dialogue, but that USHCC, as well as in collaboration with all the federal agencies, that we provide more education and information, not just to the consumer, but to also the banking institution. One last question. Oh, David, please.
No, look, I think there's absolute reality in the challenges the banks face with the regulatory environment, as small businesses do as well. But we also have an opportunity, and we're doing work, and I think there'll be more you'll hear about as we introduce new ways to lend and get into the much lower end of the market using more behavioral analysis versus always just the traditional deal things. But if you need any support and you don't have somebody to talk to, and picking up the phone to listen to you when you need help, call me, and we'll make sure you have somebody to deal with.
Okay, I know that I'm cutting into the time of others, and I do want to honor you, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to transition, because I know that the next panel is here. I have a task for you though. Make sure you exchange your business cards, and I'll leave you with this because it's my biggest pet project. Succession planning. Make sure you have a strong, because they never had a succession plan. So that's my motto. Thank you.
Representing the government of the United Kingdom, I have a couple of colleagues here as well, and what I want to talk to all of you about today is the business of sustainability. This is an area that we're really interested in. You know, I'd emphasize a couple of points here. You know, we're entering a brave new world, as Brian highlighted, in terms of you know, resource availability, climate change and its impacts, and there are a couple of things that I think you know, are worth being aware of from a business point of view. Obviously, there are risks in this new world, risks to supply chains, risks about, you know, the price of energy, something that Jade highlighted. You know, whether from scarcity of supplies or from the policy instruments that are used to deal with some of these issues. So from a business perspective, that's something I think that's important to be aware of. What I really want to highlight, there are also a tremendous amount of opportunities, you know, across the spectrum, really. It's estimated most recently that the green economy is worth roughly $6 trillion US at the moment, growing at about 4% per year. As you can imagine, in a sector that size, there are tremendous opportunities for new business formation, for companies to kind of seize that opportunity and to you know, really use that to grow. So you know, the UK has been taking leadership in this area. You know, we were the first country to commit legislation that mandates a decrease in carbon emissions. So we, in 2008, passed the Climate Change Act, which mandates a 80% decrease in emissions from 1990 levels by 2050. And you know, already that's really had a big impact. We've created roughly 1 million green jobs in the United Kingdom, and that's in a workforce of about 30 million. That's a share that's growing. It'll be at about 1.4 million by 2020. And so, you know, being here in an environment in which there is tremendous support already, you know, I'm really looking forward to having a discussion about how this community can really kind of seize the day here and really make the most out of this unprecedented opportunity. So, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mark. Deb?
Shalom, good morning. My name is Dana Ehrlich. I'm Consul for Public Diplomacy at the Israeli Consulate in Los Angeles, covering culture, media, public affairs, and economy. I have other colleagues here from our embassy in Washington. We have other speakers, and in general, it was very important for us to be part of this conference, not just because I'm Argentinian and I feel very close to this conference, but also because we see these businesses as the present and the future of the country. And it was specifically important for us to be part of this panel because Israel is part of that discussion. And we are the present and the future of, you were saying, innovative solutions. That's what we specialize in Israel. Myself, I'm not an energy expert, nor sustainability, but I do know solutions. And we are a very flexible country when it comes to understanding the problem and finding the best way to solve it. When we were first discussing this panel, I was thinking about the different, specifically about water, and the water solutions that Israel has used to overcome its serious water crisis, which a lot of the states right now in the United States are facing. And we have the big solutions, and not just regulation and policy, but one of the biggest, the largest desalination plant in the West Hemisphere is being built right now in San Diego by an Israeli company. Drip irrigation, which is an Israeli technology, is 40% of irrigation. So we are part of that, but what I wanted to come and discuss with you today is our individual role in all of this and how we can be that change in creating that sustainability in our everyday life.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Nelson?
Good morning. My name is Nelson Rainieri. I'm Vice President for Sales and External Affairs for Liberty Power. We're the largest independently owned retailer of electricity. Folks that don't live in Texas, Illinois, or the Northeast, that means that you have a choice of buying your electricity the same you would buy a cell phone contract, for example. We've been very fortunate to be longtime supporters and friends and collaborators with the USHCC. In fact, For me personally, 10 years ago was the first time that myself and our CEO, David Hernandez, and Elijah Hernandez, one of the other co-founders, started attending USHCC. At that time, that represented about 90% of the workforce of Liberty Power. Glad to say today we're about a little bit more than 200 employees, with actually a background from 40 different countries of origin. And I say that to mention that because we totally believe and appreciate the power of diversity. I'll speak to energy when we go into the questions, but we're just very brief to share how excited and how appreciative we are of Liberty Power and of the USHCC and all the different sponsors that we've been very fortunate to serve as customers today. So look forward to collaborating and working with you. Thank you for the invitation again.
Spans really is summer driven. But going back to the small business thoughts, you know, for me and in my background, coming really from the community side, the traditional form of capital investment works great for banks. I mean, we are really good stewards, right, of deposits and investment dollars and all the different types of liquidity that we bring in. Not always the great or best stewards of those investments to put them back out. We do that when in a risk-averse way, which is important because we have to protect your deposits, right? We don't want to lend money out in order to fail. We want to lend money out or invest money so that it's returned and you as a depositor or any other investor, shareholder gets paid back. But then, you know, I think the challenge with most banks is that balance of, you know, investing in community versus, you know, managing risk so that you don't lose. We're proud to say, and our CEO repeats it as often as possible, is that we didn't take any TARP money. We didn't need it. We didn't invest in any subprime businesses. We didn't have those funky mortgages. We didn't end up, you know, buying any business that was that risky. So no bailout money, which is great. It didn't limit us in how we operated the last 5 years, 6 years since the crisis. But still, you know, even at my institution, I still see that balance that doesn't necessarily move towards more creative investment in small business. So our you know, venture offer, where there would be a funding day, is what we call it, where we then, you know, have the organizations or the businesses compete to be able to get funded. And it would be outside of the realm of traditional bank underwriting. It would be really about the business and the venture opportunity. So just trying to think again, you know, trying to think less like a bank and more in the real world that we live in today, which is not like a bank. 2 out of 3 consumers have a bank in their pocket with a smartphone, and we don't, you know, a lot of us operate, you know, Chase has all the great features. We have similar features about depositing with a photo of your check, and but we've got to move way beyond that, because today nobody is originating, for example, a small business application in a mobile platform. Nobody's doing the same with mortgage, right? And it's obvious, you know, there's community-minded needs that go beyond everything that shouldn't be on the phone, right? But you've got to think in the way that people operate today. My mother, who never used a computer in her life, now FaceTimes with me and you know, just messages me. But the natives, really, these 20-somethings even, they've always grown up with technology in that way, and they really, you know, they shudder at the thought of, you want to build more branches only? You know, how are you going to do the digital work that we're all living today? So we've got to strike the balance between community needs and creativity. But those are the kinds of things that we're working on that are forward-thinking. We're currently, BBVA is an investor into the Monica's prior venture that she was talking about. I'm very pleased with the results there. And we're currently wrapping up our evaluation to invest in the new fund that she's
that are with the restrictions of a commercial lender, being out there and interested in growing that. You have people like us who are a little bit more flexible and in that sweet spot of growth where we can be partners. But there's definitely a lot of architectural issues around the right supplier diversity programs, the right capital partnerships. And I think the Greenlining Institute has been a wonderful source of information and research and advocacy in these areas. So, Orson, please share with us a little bit about that and how you see, you know, in the context of growing the right capital solutions for our business owners, the work that the Greenlining Institute has been doing in the local community.
Thank you, Monica, for that introduction and for letting me speak on this panel. We're definitely going in pecking order by paycheck and assets. So, nonprofit, you're really loud.
Next
But I think as you said in the introduction is, this is about how do we build a roadmap to what we call inclusive capitalism, right? And for us, diversity is a key component of that inclusive capitalism. And we see it here, right? From an investment standpoint, small business standpoint, from what Monica is doing, to having somebody like Alex Rodriguez at the helm of small business lending for Chase, having Ray here. So that's how change starts to happen. And for us at Greenlining, really imperative that we see more diversity in the financial service sector, and that diversity is not seen as something that is just an outlier, not connected. It's really connected to the products, and what we're talking about today is getting more capital to small business lending. For us, many people think when they hear Greenlining, they think we're an environmental organization, that we're in Berkeley, a hippie organization trying to save the fish and whales. And so let me just give you a quick background. Greenlining started as a solution, as an answer to redlining. Redlining, as many of you might know, is the practice of not including communities of color, not including Latinos in our capitalistic structure. And was, not only was it not inclusive, it also preyed on Latinos and other communities of color. Predatory loans with harmful products that made them worse off. And so greenlining is the answer to that. The way we're going to stop redlining is by creating more greenlining practices. And greenlining practices are hiring somebody like Ray, hiring somebody like Alice, giving a contract to somebody like Monica, who clearly will make a difference when they're there. That's what greenlining is all about. And so speaking to that, Monica asked to talk about what are some opportunities on the horizon, what are some things that we're seeing that make us see a better, brighter future. One of those, and it's a brighter future to create a stronger ecosystem, because clearly lending is important, diversity of who's at the table is important, but also supplier diversity is important, right? Procurement policy. Chase has a really strong supplier diversity program, and they have a really strong small business lending program. Those two, it's not an accident that they're doing all this together. And so what do we see that's going to further kind of enhance this ecosystem so that small businesses of color, Latino small businesses of color can truly thrive? And one, we just have to recognize that race and ethnicity still, unfortunately, play a big role. If you send out a resume and your name is Jose, and even though your resume could be great, just changing your resume to Joe, you're going to get a lot more calls. We've seen that. And these are not old studies from the 60s, 70s. These are studies of today. And as the Google executive said recently, and not to pick on Google, but people